welcome back to this channel. Today we are going to be reading and analyzing Act 1, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet. So for this lesson, I do want you to have the PDF of Act 1, Scene 1 opened. If you have the ability to print it, you can print it. If not, I'm just going to have you read it on your screen and then write your annotations in your notebook in your reading section, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and start reading Act 1, Scene 1 with you, and I'm gonna pause here and there to kind of analyze and annotate what it is that we're reading so you guys can understand what is going on, okay? So like we said in the prologue, we know that the setting is in Verona and it's in Italy, a public place. So in Act 1, Scene 1, they're going to be outdoors in a public place in Verona, okay? Let's go ahead and start with Scene 1. Here we have Samson and Gregory with swords and bucklers of the house of Capulet. Obviously, there's different characters, so technically, if I had another person here, it'd be great because we can kind of switch off with Samson and Gregory, but clearly that's not the case here, so I'm gonna be reading both of them, okay? Gregory, on my word, will not carry coals. No, for then we should be kohlers. I mean, and we can be in choler, we'll draw. I, while you live, draw your neck out of collar. I strike quickly, being moved. But thou art not quickly moved to strike. A dog of the house of Montague moves me. To move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. Therefore, if thou art moved, thou runst away. A dog of that house shall move me to stand. I will take the wall of any man or maid of Montague's. That shows thee a weak slave, for the weakest goes to the wall. This true, and therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Therefore I will push Montague's men from the wall and thrust his maids to the wall. The quarrel is between our masters and us their men. This all one. I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with the men, I will be civil with the maids. I will cut off their heads. The heads of the maids? Aye, the heads of the maids, or their maiden heads. Take it in with sense, thou wilt. They must take it in sense that feel it. Me they shall feel while I am able to stand, and it's known I am a pretty piece of flesh. This well thou art not fish. If thou hadst been poor John, draw thy tool. Here comes of the house of Montagues. So we're going to go ahead and stop there, and I'm going to go ahead and explain what's kind of happening in this part of the story, okay? So we obviously get introduced to Gregory and Samson, and we know that they are house of Capulet, okay? So this household automatically hates the Montagues household, which obviously we know this because in the prologue I talked about two families that are going to hate each other. So we have the Capulets and we have the Montagues, and clearly they hate each other. So in this scene, they're having like a back and forth conversation about what they would do if they came across this other family, okay? Obviously, they're trying to act really tough and they're saying all these things that they would do. And I want you to keep in mind, okay, how would they act if the Montagues were actually there? Obviously, the Montagues are not there right now, so they're talking like all this smack, kind of like how kids do behind people's back, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'll fight her, blah, 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 and then the real situation comes across them, and, you know, you baby out or something, okay? So that's clearly what's happening in this scene. There's going to be several sexual innuendos in this story, and obviously I'm not going to point out all of them. You guys need to be mature also while reading them. Obviously when you go to high school, you're going to be reading things like this, so we're kind of getting you prepared for it. But Samson kind of mentions that he's going to take the heads of the maids. That can also be a sexual innuendo when he's like, the heads of the maids or their maiden heads. Usually that kind of means like he's going to take their virginity or something like that. So clearly the sexual innuendos are starting right off the bat, okay? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and continue reading. My naked weapon is out. Quarrel, I will back thee. How? Turn thy back and run? Fear me not. No, Mary, I fear thee. Let us take the law of our sides. Let them begin. I will frown as I pass by, and let them take it as their list. Nay, as they dare, I will bite my thumb at them, which is disgrace to them if they bear it. He bites his thumb. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? I do bite my thumb, sir. Do you bite your thumb at us, sir? Aside to Gregory. Is the law of our side if I say A? Aside to Samson. No. No, sir, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. Do you quarrel, sir? Quarrel, sir? No, sir. But if you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as good a man as you, no better. Well, sir. And now we're going to have Benvolio enter the scene, okay? So Gregory, as an aside to Samson, say better, here comes one of my master's kingsmen. Yes, better, sir, you lie. Draw if you be men. Gregory, remember thy washing blow. So they start fighting. Part, fools! And he draws his sword. Put up your swords, you know not what you do. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and pause here so I can explain what's going on. First of all, I wanna make sure that you guys know what an aside means. Aside means when the character itself is gonna turn to another character and their conversation is not, like, the other people cannot hear it, okay? Sometimes they can also do this to the audience, so they'll talk to us, but clearly the people around them cannot hear that conversation. So that's what an aside is, okay? So what's happening here is they're kind of saying that they're going to be biting their thumb. So biting their thumb is the equivalent of us sticking out a middle finger to someone. So clearly it's not a good thing to do. So it's insulting, okay? Obviously, they feel offended when they see them biting their thumbs, and they kind of go back and forth as to why they're doing that. A little note that I want you guys to notice is that they say a lot of sir, and they're like, no, sir, I do not bite my thumb. Do you quarrel, sir? All of those sirs, they're kind of not shown as respectful. They're actually shown as an insult. It's kind of like when some of you are acting like really bratty and someone might be like, okay, anything else, princess? Clearly, I'm not calling you a princess for a good thing. I'm kind of being sarcastic, like, okay, you're being really arrogant right now. What do you want, type of thing, okay? So that's kind of what the sir in this scene kind of shows, okay? All right, we're gonna go ahead and continue. What art thou drawn among these heartless hens? Turn thee, Benvolio, look upon thy death. It's like a tongue twister. I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword, or manage it to part these men with me. What drawn and talk of peace? I hate the word as I hate hell. All Montagues and thee, have at thee, coward. So now we have some citizens, they fight, and the citizens are coming in. Clubs, bills, and partisans, strike, beat them down, down with the Capulets, down with the Montagues. So now we have the Capulet in his gown and the wife enter. So this is going to be the main Capulet, so his name is going to be Capulet, and his wife, which is Lady Capulet. What noise is this? Give me my long sword, ho. A crutch, why call you for a sword? My sword, I say, old Montague is come, and flourishes his blade in spite of me. Thou villain Capulet, hold me not, let me go. Thou shalt not stir 1 foot to seek a foe. So now we see Tybalt and Benvolio, and we know that Tybalt is House of Capulet, and we know that Benvolio is House of Montague. And Benvolio is kind of like the opposite of Tybalt. He wants peace, and he doesn't want to fight, and then Tybalt is like, I hate that word, okay? And he's like instigating the fighting, okay? Capulet is gonna be Juliet's dad, and his wife is kind of like, you want a sword, you're old, like you shouldn't fight. So she's like, a crutch. So that's kind of showing like, you're old, you need to sit down, I don't know why you're fighting. And she also tells him at the end, thou shalt not stir 1 foot to seek a foe. So she's saying like, you better not move and go fight. You're gonna sit here and be respectful, okay? So she's kind of like trying to put everything in control, and Capulet is like, I need my sword, I'm ready to go. Okay. So now we're going to be introduced to Prince. So let's go ahead and see what he says. Rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, profaners of this neighbor-stained steel, will they not hear? Well, ho, you men, you beasts, that quench the fire of your pernicious rage, with purple fountains issuing from your veins. On pain of torture, from those bloody hands, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground, and hear the sentence of your moved prince. 3 civil bras, bred of an airy word, by thee, old Capulet and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens, cast by their grave beseeming ornaments, to weird old partisans in hands as old, cankered with peace, to part your cankered hate. If ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. For this time all the rest depart away. You, Capulet, shall go along with me, and Montague come you this afternoon. To know our farther pleasure in this case, to old Freetown our common judgment place. Once more, on pain of death, all men depart. So Montague is going to talk to Benvolio. Who set this ancient quarrel new abroach? Speak, nephew, were you by when it began? Here were the servants of your adversary, and yours close fighting ere I did approach. I drew to part them, in the instant came the fairy Tybalt with his sword prepared, which, as he breathed defiance to my ears, he swung about his head and cut the wind, who, nothing hurt withal, hissed him in scorn. While we were interchanging thrusts and blows, came more and fought on part and part, till the prince came, who parted either part. Oh, where is Romeo? Saw you him today? Right glad I am he was not at this fray. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and stop there so that I can go ahead and explain what's going on, because I don't want you guys to be lost. So here, they begin to start talking about Romeo, who we haven't met yet. So they just bring him up, and Lady Montague is wondering where Romeo is, and she's kind of like happy that he was not in this brawl, okay? I want you guys to go back to where Prince is talking, and Prince is kind of trying to stop the fight. This is their royalty, okay? So he's making sure that this isn't happening. And he kind of goes ahead and tells us how many times they've been fighting. He says 3 civil brawls bred of an airy ward. So this says how many times they fought. They fought 3 times already, and now this is going to happen again. He also kind of foreshadows something. He says, if ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. So he kind of says somebody's gonna die, because if you guys fight again, this is going to be bad. So he's kind of foreshadowing that somebody's gonna die on the hands of this fight that's going on. We don't know who that is yet, but maybe if they fight again, somebody's gonna be on the line of death, okay? All right, let's go ahead and continue. Madam, an hour before the worshipped sun peered forth the golden window of the east, a troubled mind drove me to walk abroad, where underneath the grove a sycamore that westward rooteth from this city side. So early walking did I see your son. Towards him I made, but he was ware of me, and stole into the cover of the wood. I, measuring his affections by my own, which then most sought where most might not be found, being one too many by my weary self, pursued my humor, not pursuing his, and gladly shunned who gladly fled from me. Many a morning hath he there been seen, with tears argumenting the fresh morning's dew, adding to clouds more clouds with his deep sighs. But also soon as the awe-cheering sun should in the farthest east begin to draw the shady curtains from Aurora's bed, away from light steals home my heavy son, and private in his chamber pens himself, shuts up his windows, locks fair daylight out, and makes himself an artificial night. Black importunus must this humor prove, unless good counsel may the cause remove. My noble uncle, do you know the cause? I neither know it nor can learn of him. Have you importuned him by any means? Both by myself and many other friends, but he, his own affections' counselor, is to himself, I will not say how true, but to himself so secret and so close, so far from sounding and discovery, as is the bud bit with an envious worm, ere he can spread his sweet leaves to the air, or dedicate his beauty to the same. Could we but learn from whence his sorrows grow, we would as willingly give cure as know. So now Romeo is going to enter, and he says, see where he comes, so please you step aside. I'll know his grievance or be much denied. I would thou wert so happy by the stay to hear true shift. Come, madame, let's away. And then Montague and Lady Montague are going to exit. So right now we have Benvolio, and he's kind of talking about how Romeo has been depressed lately, okay? He says that he's been seeing him cry every morning. He walks away and kind of makes fantasy darkness for him. So obviously if it's daylight, he's kind of being shut in this dark scene because he's so depressed. And Montague and Lady Montague are trying to find out why he's so depressed, and Benvolio has no idea. So he's like, don't worry, I'm gonna figure this out. So Montague and Lady Montague are kind of hoping that Benvolio finds out what's going on. So it's kind of like, you know, in your family, if you have siblings and your parents like, hello, why is your little brother pissed? And then you have to go and find out what's going on. That's what's going on here with Benvolio and Romeo, okay? So let's go ahead and continue. Good morrow, cousin. Is the day so young? But noon struck 9. Ay me, sad hour seemed long. Was that my father that went hence so fast? It was. What sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? Not having that which having makes them short. In love? Out. Of love? Out of her favor where I am in love. Alas, that love, so gentle in his view, should be so tyrannous and rough in proof. Alas, that love, whose view is muffled still, should without eyes see pathways to his will. Where shall we dine? Oh me, what fray was here? Yet tell me not, for I have heard it all. Here's much to do with hate, but more with love. Why then, O brawling love, O loving hate, O anything of nothing first, create. O heavy lightness, serious vanity, misshapen chaos of well-seeming forms, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, still wake in sleep that is not what it is. This love feel I, that feel no love in this. Dost thou not laugh? No, 'cause I rather weep. Good heart, at what? At thy good heart's oppression. Why, such as love's transgression, griefs of mine own lie heavy in my breast, which thou wilt propagate to have it pressed with more of thine. This love that thou hast shown doth add more grief to too much of mine own. Love is a smoke made with the fume of sighs, being purged a fire sparkling in lovers' eyes, being vexed a sea nourished with loving tears. What is it else? A madness most discreet? A choking gall and a preserving sweet? Farewell, my coz. Soft, I will go along, and if you leave me so, you do me wrong. Tote, I have lost myself. I am not here. This is not Romeo, he's some otherwhere. Tell me in sadness, who is that you love? What shall I groan and tell thee? Groan? Why no, but sadly tell me who. So in this section, we kind of see that Romeo is clearly in love, and he says that he's out of love because he loves her and she doesn't love him back. We also see a lot of oxymorons in this section. Oxymorons is when you have two words that mean the opposite and they're kind of next to each other. So in the beginning of this part where he says like brawling love, loving hate, sick health, those are all oxymorons that Shakespeare is kind of adding to kind of like add a dramatic effect as to what's going on. Okay, so a lot of that is very important to analyze as well. We still don't know who Romeo is in love with, and Benvolio is trying to find out, and he's trying to get it out of him. So let's see if in the next section we find out who it is. A sick man in sadness makes his will, a word ill urged to one that is so ill. In sadness, cousin, I do love a woman. I aimed so near when I supposed you loved. A right good markman, and she's fair, I love. A right fair mark, fair cuz, is soonest hit. Well, in that hit you miss. She'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow. She hath Dian's wit, and in strong proof of chastity well armed. From love's weak childish bow she lives uncharmed. She will not stay the siege of loving terms, nor bide the encounter of assailing eyes, nor open her lap to saint seducing gold. Oh, she is rich in beauty, only poor, that when she dies, with beauty dies her store. Then she hath sworn that she will still live chaste? She hath, and in that sparing makes huge waste. For beauty, starved with her severity, cuts beauty off from all posterity. She is too fair, too wise, wisely too fair, to merit bliss by making me despair. She hath forsworn to love, and in that vow do I live dead, that live to tell it now. Be ruled by me. Forget to think of her. Oh, teach me how I should forget to think. By giving liberty unto thine eyes, examine other beauties. This the way to call hers exquisite and question more. These happy masks that kiss fair ladies' brows, being black, puts us in mind they hide the fair. He that is struck and blind cannot forget the precious treasure of his eyesight lost. Show me a mistress that is passing fair. What doth her beauty serve but as a note, where I may read who passed that passing fair? Farewell, thou canst not teach me to forget. I'll pay that doctrine, or else die in debt. So clearly we still don't know who Romeo is in love with, but we know that this girl has sworn to chaste. So on line 225 it says, then she hath sworn that she will still live in chaste. Living in chaste means that eventually she will become a nun. So in this time period of Romeo and Juliet, the women in this time period only had two choices. Number one, they got married, or number two, they became a nun. And sometimes, or most of the times, becoming a nun was kind of like the way to go, because if you were getting married, you were kind of like property to your husband, okay? You were kind of like seen to do certain things, and that's all you were going to be doing. Whatever he told you to do, that's what you were doing. And for us modern women in this time period, that would be like, who? Whose property? So clearly this girl has decided to become a nun because you're much more in control of what's happening, okay? Romeo does say that it's kind of like a waste of her beauty. Like, this girl's so pretty and now she's just gonna be a nun, really? And Benvolio tells him, you know, stop thinking of her. Look at other women. You're gonna find someone that's a lot better, or, you know, obviously will fall under his category of not becoming a nun. So I want you to think about that. Is that a good advice? Is he helping him in the right way? Okay, and that is going to be the end of Act 1, Scene 1. So I already read and analyzed it with you. I am going to add another video that kind of lets you see it visually, so that'll help as well. So once you see my video and that second video, you guys will be able to start your USA test prep assignment, and I am going to go ahead and put that due on Sunday by midnight, okay? So you guys have like 3 days, I think, because I'm going to assign this on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you have 4 days if you start Thursday, okay? So if you have any questions, go ahead and email me. You can also message me through Instagram. If you want to use Edmodo, you can, but just remember that sometimes it doesn't really work, so I see your messages kind of late, okay? But thank you for reading Act 1 with me, and I'll see you in my next lesson.